So just to help us a little bit with chapter 4, again, this is going to be kind of a, not even more of a demo and not even going through the exercises, but just kind of help you guys get better grounded in some of this stuff. I'm going to recreate my mental space project or solution because for those of you that maybe didn't see the previous video about how to do that, and also, you know, it helps just to, again, kind of remind us. So it's going to be a console application. I'm going to go next. We're going to call it MentalSpace. You know, another good name for this would be Scratchpad, something like that. It's just basically a place to do an experiment. I'm going to go create, and it's going to be there. Awesome. And that's kind of what that was. I'm going to leave Hello World program in there just because it's tradition. Now, what I'm looking at page 95, but it doesn't matter if you have the book or not. I want to basically try and really center myself and understand some of these data types that are flying at us in chapter 4. And the first bit is really all about numerical data types and operators, right? So imagine I want to do that. Well, what I'd be tempted to do then is after hello world, I'm going to create myself an int variable, and I'm going to call it X, because I really don't care what it is. I'm going to assign it 5. So I'm going to basically define the variable and assign it right there. Now, if I want to print out that variable so I can see what it looks like, right, I'm going to go and watch it. Okay, by the way, I did what I normally do, which is to copy and paste. But if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to go console, hit the tab, right line, hit the tab, open parentheses, and close the parentheses. So much easier. We're going to hit the X button, going to go and make it a little semicolon. Now, when I run this thing, it pops up and boom, hello world 5, right? Awesome, great. So now I really have a good shot at really trying to understand what some of the variables are in 95, right? In 95, they kind of show you on page 95, they talk about sort of creating some of these values. And we even, by the way, get a good explanation as to what M is. So for example, okay, bye. Anyway, so if I wanted to basically make this thing a decimal, I'd be tempted to make this M. M, they basically said, was for money. I was always kind of curious about why it was M and not, you know, F is for float. I've seen other ones, but I haven't seen M for money. But if I run this thing, I come back up, and we don't really see any benefit here. But this guy basically is now a decimal, right? I could, in theory, go make this thing 5.01, for example, and run this thing, and now it's going to show up as 5.01. So that's pretty cool. And so that gives me a chance to definitely play around with those variable types that you see on number 95. The other thing they kind of do is they kind of bring up, well, consoles. Well, constants, not consoles. Constants is on 96, 97. Constants are kind of interesting because I can actually show you something else with this. Let's just for now make this back to being an integer. By the way, notice as soon as I do that, oh, it's not happy, right? It's not happy because that's not an integer. So if I backspace over that, make it 5, it still isn't happy because that M is making it more of a decimal. Once I do that, we're good. Notice we got a little checkbox there. Now, imagine I make this thing constant. Where's my S? Constant. So I go constant. No problem whatsoever, right? But if I now, before I do this, in theory, we don't know how to do this yet, but we can kind of get a sense. If I go X is assigned X plus 1, you might remember from Python, nice little increment there. It's going, whoa, you can't, because X is a local constant. I think that's kind of cool. So it's stopping you from, this would not build. If I try to build this thing, it's going to basically say, dude, you got an error right there. The left-hand side of an assignment must be a variable, property, or indexer, or another way to say it is that it can't be a constant. All right, so anyway, so that there's a little bit going on with the constants. By the way, notice with the constants, please pay attention to the data, the variable names. We typically uppercase the first letter. I've already kind of shown you a little bit about what's going on page 98, 99, and that's your increments and decrements and your various operators. This line here has got a variable, an assignment operator, a plus operator. So there's already some stuff going on there. Let's take out that constant just because we're tired. We don't want to get used to seeing seeing a squiggly line there. All right, so we get that. One thing that I think is kind of interesting, I don't play around with it as much, but remember that x is assigned x plus 1. Well, another way to have done that would have been to basically increment it wherever I actually wanted to. So for example, over here, if I went, these are the last two operators, plus plus, this would actually increment x. So if I go, and I print it, you'll see that x is now 6 and not 5 because it was incremented, sorry, just as it was printed. Pretty cool. All right. But every now and again, you'll see this. What happens if you put the plus plus afterwards? Only really, I actually don't know if this is really, this has been a C thing forever. Even back when I was in college, this was a C thing. That said, I've never really seen people do it that way, but the book does bring it up, and this is a really good explanation a little bit about how the codes work. So what's going on here is x starts its life as 5. It's 5 when I print it. It then gets incremented. So we're only seeing 5 here. If I was to go ahead and print it afterwards, so I'm going to do 2 print statements there, or 2 write line statements. Let's print those. So you'll see that the first time I print it, it's 5, then it gets incremented, and then the next time I print it in line 14, it becomes 6. Pretty neat stuff there. So we'll just leave that at that. It talks a little bit about some more operators on the 100 and 101, and I'll just leave that to your own devices to look at. Yeah, good deal. Order precedence is 100, 102, 103. We're going to go into casting, and I'm tempted to break at this point, but yeah, actually, I'll break it at this point. What I would do is, if I was trying to learn this, is I would just mess around with some basic variables, printing them, seeing how the operators work. You should be able to copy and paste or retype actually a lot of this code that's showing up on the odd pages into your MentalSpace and get a good sense as to what's going on. By the way, if you do get this error up at the top, I have actually spent some time looking at this, and you know what? It's not that important. At least I don't think it's important. If it is important, send me an email or put something in the comments. But I don't think this is important, and I don't care. This is really a workspace or MentalSpace application. I don't really care about those error messages. All right, so that's what I got for this, to sort of help you look at some of this code and actually not just read it, but actually interact with it.